Former US President Jimmy Carter, who was the president from 1977 to 1981, died today at the age of 100. He passed away at a time when global geopolitics are in flux and the US is preparing for a new administration under Donald Trump. Carter's presidency offers valuable lessons on diplomacy, crisis management, and the challenges of leading in turbulent times. I have senior journalist Sridhar Krishnaswamy with me, who actually was in the US during the Carter presidency. Thank you for joining. And my first question to you is the Iran hostage crisis. It was one of the defining moments of Carter's presidency, with 52 American diplomats and citizens held hostage for 444 days. The Iran hostage crisis actually tested Carter's leadership and had lasting implications for US-Iran relations, which remain tense even today. So, what do you think went wrong in Carter's handling of the Iran hostage crisis, and how did it shape the perception of his leadership both at home and abroad?
Okay, thank you. Thank you for having me on your show. Listen, it's very easy to pin everything on Iran, but you have to understand what happened before Jimmy Carter. I'm taking you back to 1953, when the United States and Britain engineered a coup to remove the lawfully elected government of Mossadegh. And from 1953 onward, the Shah of Iran had been a very valuable ally of the United States, including providing space to eavesdrop against the Soviet Union. Now, what did Carter do wrong with the Iranian hostage situation? The biggest mistake he did was to admit the Shah of Iran in October 79 for medical treatment. That's something that the Iranians never forgave him for. You have to understand that the hostage crisis went on for 444 days, and they let go of the hostages only on the day Ronald Reagan was inaugurated as the president. Now, there is a little cynicism there, because Jimmy Carter had already, I mean, when I say Jimmy Carter, not him personally, but his administration had already struck a deal with the Iranians on the hostage release. But the Iranians deliberately held on to the hostages to punish Jimmy Carter, and a way of reminding him that the biggest mistake he ever did was to let the Shah of Iran into the United States for medical reasons. But for the Iranians, they put another word, ostensibly for medical reason. So they never believed that the Shah of Iran was that ill to be allowed into the US. So Carter had no choice. He was pressured from all sides, including within his own administration, past secretaries of state, including Mr. Henry Kissinger. They were lobbying for admitting the Shah into the United States. And don't forget, soon after the revolution broke out in Iran, the Shah was lingering around the Middle East. He went to Egypt, he went to Morocco, and then he stopped over, like that, but he could not. Because everywhere he went, ultimately he was asked politely to find another place. So Jimmy Carter really did not have. Now, where else could Shah have gone? I don't know. I really don't know. It's only for few historians to tell us where else he could have gone or who else would have taken him. You know. So Jimmy Carter strayed into the Iran crisis only by admitting the Shah of Iran inside.
How did it shape the perception of his leadership both at home and abroad? So, can
Yeah,
we
but
talk
the
a bit
thing is
about that?
that, once you got hostages for 452 hostages for 444 days, and you're not unable to get them out, they even had a failed military rescue mission in between. that failed very miserably because these fellows did not, calculate a few logistical things. Um, so here you have a perception of a weak America, the greatest power, having a weak president who can't even negotiate getting a group of their own diplomats out of the country. And that I was there during that presidential campaigning, and Ronald Reagan hammered him away in one of the debates, saying that he was inept, saying that he just can't do anything, and that we means in America was being made to look very weak in front of allies and adversaries, notably the Soviet Union. So that's how you look at it. And they did not for a minute think about the fact that Jimmy Carter came at a very uh, uh, timely moment in American politics, when the country was getting out of the wounds of the Vietnam War. He was trying to give a healing touch. All those things simply vanished overnight. The day the Shah was let in, and the day the hostages were taken in Tehran.
Yeah, and okay, my next question is about Camp David Accords. So that was also one of the most celebrated achievements. Him brokering the Camp David Accords, which led to peace between Israel and Egypt. So how significant was it in redefining Middle Eastern politics? And as the Middle East actually grapples with new conflicts and shifting alliances now, and how relevant is the Camp David model of negotiation today, particularly under Trump's pro-Israel stance?
See, Camp David, showed one thing, that the Arabs and the Israelis can talk. And, Jimmy Carter was very instrumental in getting President Anwar Sadat and Prime Minister Menachem Begin to the Camp David. Nobody expected them to come through with a, groundbreaking, agreement. But the fact is that he made these two sworn, I hate to use the word enemies, people who looked at things exactly the opposite. He made these two people at least talk, a handshake. There is still, I still remember on TV screens and other things, the historic handshake between the leaders of Egypt and Israel, and Carter standing in the middle, beaming. That is something that he has, achieved. Now, what has happened since Camp David? Much has happened. And that is a story for another day. Who broke the letter and the spirit. And today you are having an incoming president who is threatening to deport all the people who had taken part in pro-Palestinian demonstrations in the United States over the Gaza. And students, foreign students are terrified that somebody is watching videos just to track them down. And then he has had the biggest thing that happened to Prime Minister Netanyahu was to have Mr. Trump sitting in the Oval Office from January 20, 2025, because he thinks he's one of the biggest supporters of Israel, which means that the entire balance in American diplomacy will shift. And that is not a good sign, especially when the region needs somebody with a balanced head, balanced thinking, to resolve what is happening in the Gaza, what is happening in Lebanon, the entire Middle Eastern scenario. So this is, everything seems to be in a sort of flux. And this is something that was not envisioned during the Camp David Accords. At least the Camp David Accords led to the initial start of the thawing of ice, between the Arabs and the Israelis.
Yeah, okay. So my next question is, Carter actually faced Cold War tensions, which led to his doctrine emphasizing military intervention in the Persian Gulf. And as Russia plays a dominant role in conflicts like Ukraine, what parallels can be drawn between Carter's handling of Soviet aggression and the challenges facing U.S. foreign policy today?
You see, I exactly would not, compare, and I'll tell you why. Because the Soviets, when you talk about their aggression during the Carter era, people invariably fall back on Afghanistan, the Soviet invasion of Afghanistan in 1979. Then you have to go back and ask the question: why did the Soviets invade Afghanistan? The Soviets went into Afghanistan because they found that the Americans had lost Iran, and they're going to find a new parking space in Afghanistan. And they didn't want that to happen. The Soviets are already jittery of the American listening post in Iran, and they didn't want any more in Afghanistan. Now, Jimmy Carter, probably, reacted or overreacted without understanding the rationale for why the Soviets did what they did. And today, what you're seeing in the Middle East is something totally different. You're seeing something that's happening in the Gaza spiraling out of control. It is. Then you saw Israel and Lebanon, and then you're seeing Israel and Iran, and then you are seeing the United States getting involved in Iran. You don't see the Soviets, trying to say anything. And then you are seeing that the Soviets are, trying to find ways of winding down their aggression in the Ukraine. But for wanting to wind down something, you need two people. Just Soviets will not be able to wind down. The Ukrainians also have to wind down. See, that's where the problem is today. And that's where somebody like Carter, if he were in power today, say at a relatively younger age, but he would have, in my view, he would have emphasized the need to talk through. That is the thing with him. He was one of the first presidents who spoke about morality in foreign policy. He was the first president who brought in human rights as an instrument. But
Actually, interesting that you brought that up because my next question was about that. Carter's emphasis on human rights became a defining feature of his foreign policy. Actually, it often influenced U.S. relations with authoritarian regimes. So, Carter placed human rights at the forefront of U.S. Foreign policy, like you said. So, how effective was this approach, and did it actually conflict with America's strategic interests in certain regions?
Carter had a good vision at human rights, but the various subunits of his administration did not share that view. You still have America, I mean the United States, making a distinction between right-wing dictatorships and left-wing dictatorships. They have a propensity, even during the Carter days, to crack down on right-wing, I'm sorry, to crack down on left-wing dictatorships, and they concede up to the right-wing. But human rights, by killing, somebody from either one of these dictatorships without a reason is still a killing. But still he tried to bring about, but then he could not find the necessary momentum within his own administration. You had the Pentagon having one way, you had the CIA having in another way, and then you are ended up in a situation like Syria, where rival factions are fighting with rival armaments supplied by rival people within an administration. You have the rebels fighting with Pentagon weapons. You have rebels fighting with CIA weapons. What is this? But you're all supposed to act in a united way. Carter tried, and Carter will be known for his, humane, approach to foreign policy, which again goes back to one of the things. All the years after he left office, he was very involved in humanitarian affairs. He used to travel with another colleague, his presidential colleagues, like George H.W. Bush, like Bill Clinton, to devastated areas in Africa, just so that the whole concept of humanism can be projected. So that is something that you'll always be known for.